For one day in your courts is better than 1,000 in my own room, and to stand at the threshold of the house of my God than to dwell in the tents of the wicked. Welcome home. That's one of those wonderful phrases. It doesn't get much better than that. Welcome home. We yearn to hear those words. They're so great that even some of the resorts down in Disney World will say that to you when you check in. Welcome home. And oh, thank you. This is where I'd like to have my home. Thank you very much. That means on vacation is where you'd like to have your home, where you'd like to be all the time. But it also works well for so many people at this time of year who are home for the holidays. College students and others who we haven't seen in a while. Welcome home. It's one of those things we search for, home. I think in this area it's known in a particularly strong way between military and State Department and what have you, other governmental jobs. People get moved around probably more than most other areas of the country. So you really look for home. Something, some place to be rooted, where you're known, where people know you and you know them. There's an old saying in the church that when you have newcomers, hands off for a little while. Be nice to them, give them some space. And you can try that around here, but a lot of folks in the military, when they come here, they jump in with both feet. And before you know it, they're involved in half a dozen different things. And part of that is because you need some normal when you move around a lot. And some of it is because when you don't know what the future brings, you need to know that you and your family have someone you can count on. So welcome home. It's one of the things that St. Andrew's tries to be is home for a lot of people. That's part of the beginning of the liturgy. Every time when we start, we say, welcome home in one way or another. My wife and I got married 2 days before Christmas. And I'm not sure on this side of the altar if I've been so happy to marry someone on the 23rd of December. And our parents were really worried, oh, it'll be a Christmas without you, you'll be off on your honeymoon. Well, we had made a secret plan to actually show up for Christmas Eve before we left. And when my wife danced with her father to I'll Be Home for Christmas, they didn't quite get that we were playing with them. I'll be home for Christmas. Home, welcome home. And I've been thinking about home so much recently, not only because of the holiday travel and people coming home, but also because starting this afternoon, we are doing our week-long part in the hypothermia prevention program. For those of you who don't know about it, for 1 week a year, we are host to a number of homeless folks. They go from church to church in the coldest parts of the year because they are looking for shelter. To a certain extent, it'd be more accurate to call them houseless or shelterless, because home is this deeper thing. To the extent that they're homeless, without a rootedness, without a family, without someone or something that they would call home, that is, in some ways, a bigger tragedy than being shelterless. We'd also been thinking of home recently because our family is doing that horrible thing, going on college visits. And at one of the college visits, the college student who was showing us around said an amazing thing. He said, not only do you have to make sure the academics fit with you and everything else, but you need to tour because, he said, you have to be able to imagine yourself living here. It's home. So when I say welcome home to college students or others, I wonder if they actually think of their dorm room as home and this as another place. Eventually, when you move to a new place, you find yourself driving there automatically. I've had those times where I would get on the road and I would head to my old home. But eventually, when you automatically autopilot go to the new place, you know that it is more home to you. Of course, throughout today's scriptures, we have this sense of home, or at least seeking a home. It's in the fullness of the story of God's people, Israel. We read about them from the beginning of their story, calling themselves a wandering band. A wandering Amorian was my father is part of the early history of Israel. It would be what they would say to each other. We come from a wandering people. Then in Egypt, looking to get away from there, out of slavery in Egypt, wandering in the desert, looking for that promised home, eventually finding it. Welcome home. And in our Old Testament reading this morning, prophet Jeremiah talks to those people who have been scattered. The northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom at different parts got dispersed. Wandering armies came in and threw them all over the place. And the prophet Jeremiah is saying to them, "It is time, I am calling you home. We will be together once more." Jesus living a homeless life, we heard, of course, on Christmas, the understanding of needing a manger, needing some place to spend the night to be born. And from today's gospel, fleeing into Egypt. Joseph being warned in one dream to leave, being told in another dream to come back, and in a third dream, well, don't stay there, stay over there. Looking for home. That is in that gospel story. He returns home almost like that Jeremiah story. After he fled to Egypt, stayed there, illegal aliens as they were, there they made their home. At the end of the story, there he made his home in a town called Nazareth, called out of Egypt for home. In our psalm this morning, it comes over and over again, that idea of home. How dear to me is your dwelling place. My soul has a desire and longing for the courts of the Lord. My heart and my flesh rejoice in the living God. The sparrow has found her house, and the swallow a nest. Happy are they who dwell in your house. For one day in your courts is better than 1,000 in my own room, and to stand at the threshold of the house of my God than to dwell in the tents of the wicked. Welcome home. And in a new way, it's in our reading from Ephesians. That spirit of adoption. We do not have the birthright of the Israelites to be called home, but we are adopted. God chose us to be part of that family. God chose each one of us to be adopted into the family in a new way. Paul said, "I pray that the God of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of glory, may give you a spirit of wisdom and revelation as you come to know him." Welcome home. So what then is this idea of homelessness? Not just a needing of a shelter, which in cold or bad weather is primary concern, of course, but it's much worse than that. If you have no rootedness, no connectedness, where is your home? Where are you rooted? It's something we all search for in one way or the other, and we feel utterly lost when we don't know what home actually is. Where do you dwell? It is that thing that you most want to do at the end of the day. Which is a tricky thing to say, because sometimes at the end of the day you want to do nothing. And that's more of a palate cleanser, if you will. When you're overwhelmed, you just want to have a blank slate. The problem is when you're overwhelmed constantly, that sometimes that's as far as you ever get. All you want to do is clear the decks, watch a little TV. Well, that's okay program, I guess I'll watch that. And then when that program's over, well, I'll just keep dialing around until the least objectionable thing is on for me to spend a little more time. Or I need to listen to a little music, play a video game, whatever it is, that escape is the palate cleanser. But when you hopefully are cleansed, Where is home? What is it you want to be doing? Another way, what is the one number that you would call for help when you're in need? What is the last thought when you go to sleep, or the first one when you wake up? Of course, that's a problem too, isn't it? Often my last thought is, oh, that big bill's coming, I got to pay that one. Or that project, it's not finished yet. Or I can't believe they said that to me. That is where you dwell. That is where you're making your home. That's uncomfortable because that's not necessarily where we want to live. But make no mistake about it. If you dwell on it, that's where you're dwelling. That last thought as you fall asleep, the first one when you wake. No one wants welcome home to be that. Oh, I'm really worried about the bill. Well, welcome home, that's where you live. I'm really worried about this or that. My thoughts are completely taken up by one thing or the other. Welcome home. For the worshiping community for centuries, we've been trying to self-correct. For those of you who remember our morning prayer days, when morning prayer was what we did mostly on Sunday morning, perhaps you remember the opening of the service. Lord, open our lips, and our mouths shall proclaim, and our mouths shall proclaim your praise. We have a couple that remember that. Good. It's as if we wanted to say, we stole that from the psalm. We almost want to say, this is how we want to start our day. The very first thing that comes out of my mouth when I open my lips is, my mouth shall show forth God's praise. It was a corrective for God's people to say, that's where we want to live. That's a good place to live. So they said it every morning, because morning prayer, by the way, not a Sunday thing. It's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing. And you can all do morning prayer on your own, and lacking that, you can say that phrase even without morning prayer. Lord, open my lips, and my mouth shall proclaim your praise. That's where we would live. That's where we would make our home. And there's something more to home that really came out in the collect for this morning. O God, who wonderfully created and yet more wonderfully restored the dignity of human nature, grant that we may share the divine life of him who humbled himself to share our humanity. Him who humbled himself to share our humanity. We are God's first and last thought. God would dwell with you. That's where God would make his home. The story of God's people searching for a home, searching for a dwelling, is a story of God searching us out to dwell with us. To say to him, welcome home, would be the greatest gift. So where do we dwell? Where do you call home? It is said that you shouldn't tell someone your priorities, you should show them your checkbook, because that shows what your priorities are. I might take that one step further and say, time is not money, time is life. How you spend your time is how you show your priorities. Every second of the day, you can't get back. It's over. There's no way to get more time. Every moment is your life. And when you spend time here, you spend your life here. When you spend time with a loved one, you're spending some of your life with them. And when you're spending your time doing something silly or stupid or non-life-giving, you're spending your life on it. Where do you call home? Where do you dwell? So where does that leave us? What are we to do? It's really a two-step process. First is give thanks for the home that you have. And that includes something as simple as a house, a shelter. But it's family, it's friends. It's those things that are life-giving to us, our passions, things that we do to spend our time, our life on, that are life-giving. We give thanks that we have a home, And second, we respond to God's call to dwell in the Lord, to come home. That is, if you'll pardon the pun, home improvement. That's what we're called to do, so that at the end of the day, we might hear Jeremiah's call to the northern kingdoms, to all of us. See, I am going to bring them from the land of the north and gather them from the farthest parts of the earth, among the blind and the lame, those with child and those in labor together. A great company they shall return here. With weeping they shall come, and with consolations I will lead them back. I will let them walk by brooks of water in a straight path in which they shall not stumble. Welcome home.